Are you lacking in confidence when it comes to mixing? Are you struggling with decision paralysis? Perhaps you feel like you're going around in circles, not making any decisions, just tweaking things and spending hours and hours on a mix that you just never end up really finishing. Well, today I'm going to give you a mixing practice technique that's going to help build your confidence and get you out of this loop that you're currently stuck in. I was recently thinking about what things did I learn early on in my mixing journey that helped me progress quickly and become a better mix engineer faster? I was fortunate enough to be taught by a guy called Simon Taylor, and Simon later went on to write Billy Decker's template mixing and mastering book alongside Billy himself. And Simon taught me this technique that he didn't give a name to at the time, but I'm going to call the upwards mixing technique. Now, this technique made me a better mixer for a few reasons, but mainly because it taught me to have confidence in my decision making as a mix engineer. This technique is about committing to your decisions, because the best producers, mixers, artists, whatever, they all do the same thing, which is they commit. They stick to an idea and they run with it because they have confidence in their decision making and what they're doing. Now, in practice, in the long run, you'll probably move away from this technique because it's less of an actual mixing technique and more of a mixing practice technique. Much like if you were learning to play guitar or any other instrument, you would have practice routines and practice techniques that you would do to help build your confidence and build your ability in certain areas. And this is exactly what this is going to be, but for mixing instead. So right now, this is going to be a great way of helping build your confidence in your decision making and help you mix upwards towards a finished mix. So the fundamental principle of this technique is that once you start building your track from the ground up, you're not allowed to go backwards and change anything that you've already done. You're always moving forwards and you're always moving upwards. So you're going to start with the kick drum. You're going to get your kick drum sounding how you want it to sound, shape it up, nice low end, maybe a bit of compression and EQ. You're not going to spend ages on it, but you're just going to shape something that sounds good and you're going to build on top of that. And then you're going to bring in your snare or whatever's next in your drum arrangement, then the hi-hats, and you're just going to keep building upwards. But as I say, every time you bring in something new, you're not allowed to go back and change the thing that you did previously. That includes the volume balance. So you're constantly making a decision and you're sticking with it. So you go kick drum, snare drum, hi-hat, you get the levels right, you set them, you move on, you don't come back and change it. Then once you've got a nice drum mix and you feel like the drums are balanced properly, you're then going to bring in something like your bass, for example. You're going to get your low end relationship right between the kick and the bass. But again, you're not allowed to go back and change the kick drum. So you've got to mold the bass to fit with the drum mix that you've already created, because this whole thing is about having confidence in your decision making, building upwards and not going backwards and constantly tweaking things and ending up stuck in that loop that you've been stuck in for so long until now. Then once you've got your drums and your bass sounding right, you're going to start working on the next most important thing in your mix, be it if it's a synth bass track where you've got a lot of synths and keys, bring in those parts, start fitting them into your mix in the right way. Or if you're doing something which is maybe a bit rockier guitar based and you've got electric guitars, acoustic guitars, whatever, you're going to start bringing them in. You're going to find a level for them. You're going to EQ them in the right way to make them fit with what you've already got. But remember, once again, you can't go backwards and change the stuff that you've already done, because that defeats the purpose of this practice technique. And you're just going to keep doing that. You're going to do that until you get to the point where you've got a solid sounding instrumental mix and all of the instrumental parts are in the places they should be in your mix. They're panned in the right places. They're balanced in the right places. And remember, you cannot go backwards. You're sticking to the decisions that you've made. Then once you've got your foundation instrumental mix, that's when you bring in your vocal, your lead vocal. Start with the lead vocal, find a place in the mix for the lead vocal, get it sounding how you want, compress it the way that it needs to be compressed, EQ it the way that it needs to be EQ'd to fit in with what's already existing in your mix. And then from there on, you can bring in the back-end vocals. Once you've got the whole static mix, remember, once again, you're not allowed to go back and change any balance. Once you've committed to a balance, you're moving forward all the time. And then you're going to bring in some effects, reverbs, delays, whatever it may be. I would save these until the end because otherwise things get messy. So in this practice routine, you're building your whole dry, static mix, and then you're going to bring in some effects, some reverb, some delay. You're going to find the pockets in the mix where you can add these things in. They're not going to dominate the mix. They're just going to fit in around what you've already built. Then once you've got your effects in place, your reverbs, delays, whatever it is you're choosing to use, then you can move on to doing some mix bus, master bus processing, shaping the whole mix. But remember, again, we're not moving backwards, we're moving forwards all the time. Do not go back and change any of the balance that you've already put in place. Because once you get to the end of that, and once you've built your mix upwards and you feel like, okay, I've committed, every stage of this, I've committed to making sure that I'm moving forward and I'm not constantly tweaking things. Once you've got to the end and you've built this static mix that sounds really good, that's where you can go in, use some automation to bring things up in certain parts of the track, move things around if you need to in terms of the panning and the stereo field with automation, but you're not going back and undoing the decisions you've made. And I guarantee you, if you do this on the next 5 to 10 mixes that you do, you are going to start to see improvements in your decision making. You're going to find that you make decisions much quicker, much easier, and you're not second guessing things that you're doing all the time. You're moving forward because you've built this routine of just constantly moving forward with your mixes. As I say, this is not necessarily a technique that you're going to stick with in the long run. As an experienced mix engineer myself, and if you watch videos of other mix engineers, you'll see that like people are tweaking things all the time. They're going back, changing little things, doing that. But that's because they've built the confidence. I feel confident in my ability to make decisions. So I know that if I'm kind of going and I'm doing something and I'm tweaking this and I'm bringing something else in, that's going to change the context. But that's because I'm kind of aware of that. I've got a picture in my mind of what the final mix should be, and I know how to get there, and I understand that like it's a series of moving parts. But if you're early on in your mixing journey, you're going to struggle to build that confidence quickly. And actually, by constantly tweaking things and moving around, you're probably damaging your own confidence because you're constantly asking yourself questions about whether or not you're making the right decision by doing that. So this technique is a great way, as I say, to help you build confidence, help you level up your mixing workflow, and just be more confident in making decisions and committing to things. So if you're struggling for confidence in your mixes, then go and try this technique on the next mix that you do. Never go backwards. Never think, maybe I could just go and tweak the level of that kick drum, or maybe the hi-hat's too loud. Move forward all the time. Keep moving forward. Try this, and I promise you, in the next few months, you're going to notice a huge difference in your ability to mix and your confidence in yourself as a mix engineer. And if you want more support and more help in building your confidence as a mix engineer, you can check out my Fundamentals of Mixing video course, in which I mix a track from start to finish using nothing but stock plugins in Logic Pro. As well as the video course itself, you also get multi-tracks to practice mixing, plus a bunch of preset chains and stuff for Logic Pro if you're a Logic user. But even if you're not a Logic user, this is a great way of learning the fundamentals of mixing to help you get great mixes every single time you mix. So check that out right now on the link in the description below if you're interested. And in the meantime, please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.